What's up everybody, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a great day. My name's Keegan Larwin, a New York City-based 3D artist, and you're watching The Art of Games. Today, we're looking at the one and only infamous Fortnite. That's right, Fortnite. You might be saying, what, Fortnite? Yes, Fortnite actually has a lot to teach us in the way of game art and design, honestly because it's a game that's designed for literally every single platform that exists. Fortnite is amazing because it runs across all these platforms and they have to build it to be so lean and so sleek. And a lot of the tricks and techniques they use to create a game that looks pretty visually good for all these different platforms is something that we're gonna be looking at today, along with a bunch of other like weird, wacky stuff. Because if you've played Fortnite, you know that it's really, really weird. It's a weird game. And also like incredibly popular. So let's jump right in. Oh, I should be noted, I'm using an Xbox controller because I usually only play Fortnite on the Switch. And if you saw me play it on PC, well, you would laugh at me. So here we go. So let's jump right in. We're gonna go to a fan favorite, Dusty Depot. Oh, these PC load times are amazing. Cool, so as we fly down, let's take a look at this comet, which, you know, now that I'm looking at it, is this moving? So right away we can see that this comet is really just a mesh. Usually smoke is a volume that is kind of on a voxel grid, but games can't do that because they don't have the resources to. So this whole smoke thing is just a mesh. It's a 3D model that's been modeled in such a way that it looks kind of like smoke. Now, obviously it doesn't look like realistic smoke because it's not scattering correctly. I don't know if we can get a better view of this here. Hop up this bad boy. This is season 10, I should know, by the way, of Fortnite. So yeah, this smoke cloud, you can obviously see that it is, it doesn't look super realistic, but obviously this is a very cartoony type of game, so realism is more something that's implied more than is actually there. You can actually see if you look closely, the texture on this comet here, on the smoke trail, is displacing. And by displacement, it basically just means some kind of algorithm or pattern is deciding, is kind of forcing the faces and the vertices of the mesh to kind of like wiggle in a certain way. So you can define that by like a noise pattern or a bitmap or something like that. But for smoke, it works really well because smoke already has this kind of ethereal, kind of flowy look. So if you just add displacement that's maybe like a noise or some kind of turbulence to it, you get this kind of nice, like smoky looking texture. And it's really, really cheap as far as system resources go. So that's pretty dope. So something also to note here is these nice little sprites floating around in the air here. They're kind of like embers, sort of. And honestly, it's a really nice touch because it just adds a whole lot of detail to this mesh. I mean, if someone made this mesh by itself, it wouldn't look that great. But part of what they're doing here is they're adding all these little notes, like this little energy note here. There's obviously some emission coming off of the textures here, as well as like these little dirt chunks and this flame sprite that's semi-transparent here. And ooh, I heard an explosion, but I'm alone. That's creepy. Are there ghosts in Fortnite Creative? I really hope not. So yeah, just all these little details kind of come together and add up to make this really nice looking comet. Even though it's not super realistic, it's pleasing to the eye. And that's really what's important when you're talking about art for games especially. Like all these little flames here. You can see they're a little pixelated. This looks like a sprite to me. Yeah, you can tell because when you rotate the camera, they stay facing the camera. Yeah, so these are just all little sprites on a few different textures. And they look really good. I'm a huge fan of sprites. If you've seen other episodes of the show, you know that sprites are really the way to go. Okay, that's about all I got for this comet. These really nice emissive textures here. I mean, it's just a really detailed model, and you kind of get this like chromatic aberration here when kind of like the edges of the frame kind of like shift colors. I'm getting this nice chromatic aberration that kind of implies like a glitch or something, or like a gap in the space-time continuum in this case. So it's really good. Let's check out in here really quick. Yeah, just kind of getting these nice lighting cues. And you'll note that I just grab chests by instinct. I play this game a lot more than I'd like to admit. So yeah. Let's just take a look here. Feels like I'm falling much slower than usual. Which is rather alarming. Man, I'm just admiring how good this game looks in 1440p. The Switch is obviously like a sub HD screen. Oh, here we go. The sub is just like the Switch is a sub full HD screen, which is like kind of a bummer. It's just amazing how much clarity you get like on a full big screen. I should really play this on PC more and try and up my game. So here we have the infamous llama. Though we all assume it's a llama when it could be an alpaca. I'm pretty sure they said it's a llama. So let's blow this up and just kind of take a look at what kind of effects are going on as we blow up a llama. So it's actually pretty simple. You have these little confetti bits that are falling around that you might not even notice. And all these objects just kind of scatter around. What I really like about these Fortnite kind of objects that come in, even though they don't technically exist in the world, they're like pickups or power-ups, they have a lot of detail. If you look at this bandage here, you can see the texture of the actual like bandage material, and it's a really good looking texture. I mean, you could take this into like Cinema 4D or 3DS or Maya or whatever, and really get a good looking render out of this just with like the normal maps that they have provided. And also this asset here of the Boogie Bomb, just the amazing like, I need this thing to get out of the way. Just the amazing, you see like this bitmap pattern that's animating on. Someone animated that in like After Effects or Photoshop and applied that texture. And just the way they have the animation happening on this object, like an animation applied to an object that's not animated, it's just super cool. This is one of my favorite assets in Fortnite for sure. Let's throw one. Nice little trail there. So you'll notice when you throw this, it leaves behind a trail, like stars or butterflies or something. And then the point of the explosion, you get this nice like multicolored explosion. So let's pop this second one open really quick and just look at it one more time. Man, it's a great looking comet. So when this opens, just note the explosion of particles that come out and kind of how they rest and settle on the ground. It happens in like the blink of an eye, so pay very close attention. You see that? And we had these kind of streaks that kind of come off. And those are very simple, very easy to do particle effects. But when you use them in conjunction, it creates this really nice, pleasing effect. And part of Fortnite, part of the reason this game has become so popular is because it's designed to give you that pleasing feeling. If you've ever played like a bubble shooter game or Bejeweled or something, it has these really satisfying sounds and animations and colors that are like meant to activate your lizard brain and be like, oh wow, like, that's good, I want more of that. You get addicted to it. And a lot of Fortnite's appeal is its like sensory, the pleasing sensory nature of like a lot of these things. So when you pop open a llama like that, all of these different, the sound of it, the colors and the shapes of the particle effectors are all there to design to be extremely pleasing to your mind. So when you see it, you're like, yeah, that's good stuff, you know? Let's see if we can find a chest. Because chests are something that, since I first started playing Fortnite, I thought were extremely clever in the way they design them. Usually you can hear one. Let's pop in here, I wanna get a good view. Here we go. All right, so let's check this chest out really quick. They've actually changed the texture quite a bit in recent updates. It used to be that the chest model was the same, but kind of this glowing, ethereal, like gold dust. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but this like glowing, ethereal dust coming off of it used to be kind of like more of a wave, kind of like there was light pouring down or like smoke pouring down. And what it really used to be was just like a plane that was kind of bent and deformed and shaped. And then it had this like streaky texture on it. And it looked really good. And it was a really easy way to have just like maybe a dozen, 2 dozen polygons making a really pleasing effect. But now you can see, at least in the PC edition, they've really updated it. We have this particle effect coming off, kind of over here you can see it, with all these little like bits of smoke pouring off of it. And it's not really smoke, like, again, it's just a sprite on a particle texture, and the smoke, each particle is just a bitmap of the smoke, and it's kind of, the opacity is being turned down the further it gets in its life. So it kind of comes out and disappears. And then you have these occasional little dot particles, little dust particles that come off of the chest. And they kind of shoot out really fast and then slow down and then decay away. You can tell the size is pretty variable. And then lastly, you have kind of this more, what it used to be, kind of the more traditional plain looking thing, just seeping out of the cracks here. And overall, it's a really pleasing look. You'll also notice that the saturation on this, the color saturation on this chest is extremely high. Most things in Fortnite are extremely saturated. Even these boxes are pretty saturated, but when you take a step back and look at this chest, it just sticks out so purely in the frame. And they do that for a reason. They do it because when you see this chest, you want to be like, yeah, it activates that part of your brain where you're like, a hunter-gatherer back in like the pre-civilization, and you see a berry on a bush, and you get that rush of like, oh, berry, I'm gonna eat that berry. That's what they're trying to evoke with this chest, and honestly, it works so well. So let's pop this open, look at the animation, just kind of like listen to the sound of it and watch what happens when we open it. So right off the bat, there's no actual real, very many particle effects coming off of it. You see a few stars shoot out, but other than that, that's really it. As soon as you activate it, the color goes away. There's this nice sound cue of that tension of the chord, the sound, the music chord that it's holding, kind of dissipates and goes away, and it relieves that tension, and out pops some good stuff. In our case, great stuff. I honestly don't know why I'm hoarding all this stuff. So let's pop open another chest and just kind of listen to that sound and get that feeling. And activate the lizard brain in us all. I knew there'd be one in here. I just knew it. All right, so you hear that sound? Don't know what that is. Don't know perfect pitch. But it's kind of creating the sound of tension, just floating in the air. So let's open this chest and listen to it dissipate. It has this nice long fade out. It's so good. The chests are really just like something. There's something else in this game. And they're just so pleasing, and they make them more pleasing with every update. So good. All right, let's check out. We're going here next. So as we make our way down here, there's, this is odd. I didn't really notice this, but there's an obvious red light hitting the bottom of these trees, especially this one. You can tell it's like a weird red light. I don't know if that's supposed to be a lighting cue coming from this comet, which you can actually see now. Creative service just on 60 minutes. Great, don't need that notification. You can actually see on the comet texture really quick that it's tessellating. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This kind of grid that it's making. It's just one of the textures tessellating, and they've done it in a super clever way. So you can't really tell, it just kind of looks fractured, but these are actually the same texture repeated over and over, and they tessellate them so the bridge is seamless, but when you see them all laid out. Anyway, sorry, I get so distracted by pointing out. The thing is, as a 3D artist, getting ground textures and stuff like that down to a point where you can't see them tessellate is really important, because that's one of the biggest things that when you see a 3D image, you're like, oh, those tessellating textures doesn't look real. So when you see someone hide their textures like this very cleverly, or when there's a beautifully blended ground like this, you're like, ah, so good. You can actually see some textures tessellating or tiling over here. You see this crack right here, and it's repeated right here, and repeated again right here, and repeated again right here, and so on and so forth. And usually these textures from the ground, when you look at them, you don't notice it, but the higher up you go, oh, come on. I never said I was good at Fortnite, I just said I like it. Again! Alright, we're just going to do this. Honestly, it still looks pretty good up here. Let's go a little higher. honestly, hats off to these guys. What is happening now, it looks like... Oh no, yeah, you can totally see it tessellating. Let me, So you can see this texture is repeated over and over. Even though it is repeated, it still honestly looks pretty good. Yeah, definitely looks really good. So while we're up here, we'll take a little trip towards where I wanted to go anyway. When you look at these Fortnite trees, this is something you'll notice in the different versions of Fortnite. Basically, man, now would be a great time for a sniper, let me tell you. Should have been the first thing I did, honestly. When you look at these trees up close are obviously the full models. They have nice kind of shifting textures on them. The textures themselves are kind of animated to move, and honestly, it looks really good. You have the leaves kind of seeping underneath each other, and really what that is it's just various different... Actually, I'm honestly pretty sure it's a bitmap, just kind of loaded onto this sphere, or a number of different spheres that are like slightly overlapping each other, and then the texture is what's shifting, but the spheres are actually staying in the same spot. That's what I think is happening, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, just getting sidetracked by these nice looking trees. I'm pretty sure they don't animate like this in Switch, which is why I'm so caught off guard by it. So anyway, what I was trying to say about these trees is you'll notice that they're kind of they're the full models here, but as you look into the distance, maybe these trees, you don't see them moving quite as much. And part of it's because you're far away, but part of it's because games and a lot of 3D applications like movies and commercials and stuff use something called level of detail. And basically what that means is you have, for every asset you have in the game, so let's just say a tree in this instance, for every tree you have in the game, you have different versions of that tree with different levels of detail. And the reason why you do this is if every tree in this game had this amount of polygons and this animation on it, spread out through all of these trees you can see throughout the entire island, your game would just chug because that's just way too many polygons to count. You're not even looking at most of them. So the solution is the ones that are far away where you can't even tell whether or not they're low poly, they just switch to a different model that's a lower level of detail. So instead of having like 8 billion polygons in your scene, you go from like having 8,000 around you to another 8,000 out in the distance. And you'll notice you can kind of tell more easily when you look at these trees out here where the texture is super smeared. These textures aren't even models. They're honestly just sprites of a tree. It's super low resolution, super far away. And no matter how you move, you can tell that there's absolutely no parallax on them. And what's great about a sprite is it's just one polygon. These have tons of polygons, probably about 1,000, maybe 2,000, 3,000. It's hard to say without looking at the mesh. With how clever these asset creators and modelers are, sometimes it's hard to tell sometimes how many polygons there are, but it definitely isn't a lot because it's a game. But these sprites out here are just one polygon. Think of all the system resources you're saving by making these sprites one single polygon. It's crazy stuff. Okay, let's keep moving. So while we're building, let's talk a little bit about these nice little building animations. Honestly, I really like them. Every time you put down a board, all of these like subboards are animated into place down from the sky, and it's just super pleasing because you can see your stuff getting built in real time. And it also offers obviously that strategic element of having, like literally being able to see through your boards as they're being built. Which is obviously really cool. Anytime the art can help influence gameplay, it's just like it's great in my opinion. And honestly, with all the talented artists at Fortnite, it's just like hats off to the amount and the different creative ways in which they can make the art influence the gameplay, which is incredible. So we're coming down to the scene of the crime for that giant mech battle that happened at the end of Season 9. Can I take damage in creative mode? Yes, that's the answer to that. So this is where the conclusion of the giant mech battle took place. We have this giant sword that looks like pretty sweet. It's very Power Rangers-esque that came down and finally slayed the kaiju. So honestly, when I first came to this area, I was super struck by honestly how beautiful it is. I mean, you've got all these flowers that are swaying in the wind. Again, Yeah, honestly, I don't think these are sprites. No, they have to be. Honestly, it could just be like 6 or 7 polygons that were kind of, yeah, these are like bent upward. Man, this must be kind of resource intensive. When you play games as a 3D artist, you start to think about resources. Because if I tried to build this like a high-res model, like just this part of the map, just this part of the island, this monster section, I mean, it would crash even like a really nice computer if you're doing it on full detail. So all the different like the tricks they use to lower the poly count is just like incredible. So the fact that they have this field of flowers here, great work. There's the sniper I was looking for. I had a feeling, you know, I had a little tiny feeling. So when we're talking about level of detail, I don't know if you just saw that there, but you kind of see this thing pop in and out. Maybe not. As we're walking though, you'll be able to see things switch from a certain level of detail to a higher level of detail, like these trees out here in the distance. Yeah, did you see that one kind of back there pop in? As soon as I zoomed in, the game engine was like, oh, he's looking at this model up close. We have to quick swap out the model. Let me see if I can do that again for you. These auroras look really good. Auroras are really easy to do in games, and we should honestly do them more in 3D. I really haven't been using auroras effectively, I don't think. All right, so we see all these trees. Clearly, these white trees here, clearly they're at a lower level of distance. Maybe if I aim here. Yeah, you can see him pop in and out. Pops in, pops out. Pops in, pops out. And if we look at it, you can see him switch. Those back there, super low level of detail. Let's try this one. Oh, look at how chunky that guy looks. Get a little closer here. See, he looks good from far away. As we get closer, we just saw it pop in. And now it's good detail. High detail. Here's another chunky boy. See if I can get him to pop in. No, he's not gonna do it. They're very clever about changing the models, because if you see a model change in front of you, it ruins the illusion, basically. So they try and be extremely clever about how they're going to go about, you know, changing the models. And usually they'll do it when you're not looking directly at it, but sometimes you can trick it. Oh, what, I can't build here? So sue me. Now that I know I can take falling damage, I'm trying really hard not to not to fall. As I say that, jeez. I know this episode is slowly turning into just me building ramps inefficiently, but bear with me here. It's a big island, and they just don't seem to spawn vehicles anymore, so. All right, so we're gonna head into the Winterland while it still exists here. Oh, I bet I can make this tree pop in. Oh, look at that chunky sprite. We caught him in the act. Try and move forward. Get him to pop in. I'm moving forward, you might not be able to tell. Oh, it looks so bad. It's gotta switch. It's gotta switch. It looks like a nuclear bomb blast. Ah, see, they switched it. I always do it when you're not suspecting it. It's difficult to see, but if you're ever playing Fortnite, or honestly any game that has like a lot of trees or grass or something, try it out. Try and trick the game. If you can't trick the game, you know the designers did a great job. These snowflakes look nice. Very big, very stereotypical looking snowflakes. Obviously snowflakes in real life wouldn't be that scale compared to a person, but it's a game, it's a cartoon. Not a big deal, looks great. wonder if they still do this, actually. No, I guess not. So back in the, I don't want to say the early days of Fortnite, because that makes me sound old, and it's just not true. A season ago, when you would hit a tree with snow on it, it would turn green. Almost as if you were like shaking the snow off of it. And it was a really nice artistic touch, but it also, like I was saying before, very much influenced the gameplay. Because it's another example of the artists in this game, you know, creating a nice little touch of the snow falling off the tree. Obviously it doesn't happen anymore, but it used to. Of the snow falling off the tree, and that would impact the gameplay because you would see a tree without snow on it in a snowy region and be like, what? Someone was here. And honestly, that's something that's great, and one of the things that I love so much about Fortnite. Okay, so we tackled snow. We wanna grab a mech. You know what? While they're still here, might as well. Mechs are cool. They're fast. You can tell I'm obsessed with mechs because look at this dope character model. I didn't intend to go all in on Season 9, but I have a weakness for mecha. I haven't watched a mecha anime in a long time, but just the design, like Gundam, Neon Genesis, like all that stuff. Like when I saw that the developers at Epic had a skin that was basically just a Gundam, I was like, well, I'm done for. I'm gonna be playing Fortnite every day for the foreseeable future. It was a dark time, but it was fun. And now I have this amazing skin that I'm literally never gonna swap out. So the mech suits are pretty nice looking. They've got this nice little ammo belt here that sways in the wind. I can't interact with it, unfortunately. And it's down in its compressed state. So when I drive, you see that it adopts my skin, which is cool, and it kind of animates upwards. So if we just look at this animation for a second, you see that he's got this idle animation. And technically when you think of a robot, you think that it's basically stationary until you give it some input that tells it to move. But this robot has a little bit of character to it. You can see that he's a little bit fidgety. He's kind of like looking around. And that's just another way that Epic does a great job at injecting character into even the inanimate objects. Like for instance, look at this Easter Island head. They just have so much character to them that have been added in the game. Obviously, if you look at the actual Easter Island heads, they're beautiful and they're crazy wonders of the world, but they don't have like this kind of cartoony character aesthetic. And just the way Epic can take something like that from the real world and like put it into their game with their own flavor, and it just feels so at home at Fortnite. It's good stuff. All right, so let's take this mech boy for a spin. I'm gonna charge up here. You see that these little boosters on the back of him kind of animated downwards and started shooting fire out. You can see that fire is actually creating actual lights or light reaction on the legs of the robot, which is super cool. It's always good when you can create a light in a game and have the environment actually react to it. It just really sells every kind of visual effect that you put into a game. Also note that the wind coming out from beneath the thrusters, kind of like when a helicopter lands, you get that updraft of all the dust and stuff. They've got that in there. Just great touches all around. It's a really nice looking animation. So good. And you watch there's a nice little camera shake right when you launch or right when you hit the ground. Ka-choom, shake. Oh, good shake. The camera kind of pans down like this, goes, whoa. Just really adding to the weight of this thing. And if there's one thing that Epic is incredible at, well, the Fortnite team at Epic in particular, it's just the animations. The animations are so good across the board. Like, the dances, I think, are the first thing that come to mind, but the dances are generally mo-capped. Like, let me hop out of this guy really quick. What do I have going on here? Right. So dances like these are generally mo-capped. They'll bring someone in who knows how to do the dance, and then they'll do the dance, and then the animators will kind of take the first frame and the last frame and blend them together so you get a nice little loop. So even though these animations are pretty cool, and don't get me wrong, the animators do have a big part in the dances. It's not like they just have someone, okay, that song's not. It's not like they just have someone come in and put on the mocap suit and do the dance and they're like, okay, we're done. The animators do have to do a lot of finessing to get it, to make sure it like fits all the character models and make sure that the character isn't clipping inside itself too much. So they do a lot of work, but a lot of that's mocapped. You can't really mocap a robot, you know? This was all hand animated by someone. This wasn't, it's not dynamics, it's not mocap generation, probably. I mean, it could be, but I'm pretty sure it's 99% sure it's not mocap generation. It's just someone literally went in, some brave man, woman, or someone went in and literally animated it frame by frame. This is new. Oh, they took this place out. Dog, that's kind of a bummer. I like this place. This is like my go-to hide early on stages of the game. Man, you can see like the pipes and stuff sticking out. I mean, this is a good example. If you've played Fortnite before, you know this used to be like a gymnasium, gas station, like a small little town. And now it's gone. And one of the beauties of Fortnite, obviously, is that the island is ever changing and ever evolving. And it's one of the reasons that Epic keeps people coming back, obviously. Never gets old. I'm gonna miss it when they eventually take it out of the game, because you know it's coming. But just the fact that you can walk through this like very pretty, very pleasing. I wonder if I can get that in the mech suit. Very, very pretty, very pleasing island, and just kind of come across changes, things that weren't there before, things you've never seen before, or things that used to be there that are now gone. Man, I think maybe my favorite part of this jumping animation is the flames that come off of the thrusters and the feet. Look at the legs really quick when I boost here. Ready? You get these nice energetic flames that feel like they're really propelling this guy forward. I think another nice touch that they've added to the island is that you can see this kind of big mountain in the distance, and you could always have seen that. There was always, you know, things in the distance, Easter eggs and stuff. But without it, the island feels a little too detached. It almost feels a little too like a video game level. But when you add these big, you know, structures out here, I'm pretty sure this mountain here is an actual 3D object, just set in the distance and like super low poly. It's so far away that it literally doesn't matter. But just kind of adding these touches and then throwing some nice atmospheric perspective on it to make it feel very far and distant. And by atmospheric perspective, obviously, we mean the lowering of contrast as it goes out into the atmosphere. It's literally, there's atmosphere between here and there, like literal sky, that makes it look kind of faded like that, which is why we call it atmosphere perspective. It's the perspective of objects in the atmosphere relative to your location. It's like the more fanciful definition. Oh, look at these rays! These look great. I'm always a sucker for God rays. A little bit of trap code shine for my After Effects friends. Or CC Radial Fast Blur if you're working at a studio that doesn't have trap code suite. Yeah, you get these nice, beautiful atmospheric rays. It's just a really, really nice artistic touch. Especially, it kind of adds to that golden hour feel that we have right now, the time cycle. Whoa, the block looks wild right now. What is this? This is super cool. Honestly, the block is one of my favorite additions to kind of the newer versions of Fortnite. I think it might have been, it's definitely sometime this year when they introduced it. But just letting kind of players take all of Epic's really, frankly, epic assets and building these amazing, crazy things. I mean, you see this on the horizon, you're like, what is that? In fact, they update it like basically every week. It's honestly so cool. So let's hop out of this bad boy. Maybe we should self-destruct him. Can we do that? Let's see, self-destruct. Nice explosion. You could clearly see the explosion kind of animate out and then animate back in as the particle smoke trails kind of went flying out. But honestly, it's a good looking explosion. As long as it feels powerful, like, it doesn't have to be, doesn't have to look realistic. And again, Fortnite is not about realism. Fortnite is about looking good. All right. So we're taking a little trip over to our friend the pirate ship here. You see some weird glitch happening. I wonder if that's supposed to be one of those atmospheric rays that has gone awry. Generally, when you have like atmosphere rays like that, what you're doing is specifying like a point of light and then generating rays from like the edges of the dark areas outwards. And if that light point specification, yeah, I think it might have been the moon, honestly. If that light point specification like is like clipping or peeking through a geometry in the distance, like I'm pretty sure the moon was passing behind, the reflection of the moon that is, was passing behind some object in the background where it could see through for a moment. It was giving me that atmospheric ray when it shouldn't have. Which, like, I've never seen that glitch in Fortnite before, so props to them for having such a stable game. So something also to note about Fortnite, and it's impossible to get to just in one episode of this, is just how varied and different the art styles are. And I think it's great that the artists at Epic are given all of these different aesthetics to play with. You know, you have obviously Tilted right now is like a Western town, and you have all the pirate ship and this like Tortuga pirate town. And then you have the medieval town over down at Happy Hamlet, or more medieval feeling, like a Tudor revival perhaps. And you have like the castle that used to be at Polar Peak, or the castle up here by Haunted Hills, and like the suburbia Pleasant Park. All these different aesthetics that Epic is allowed to play with and build assets for is really just great. And it feels, you can tell that the people working on the art for this game are refreshed by all the cool different things they do. And I don't want to speak for them, obviously, and I don't want to speak to like the working conditions at Epic, because it's a whole different topic for a whole different show, honestly. But speaking from experience as an artist, going into a studio and working on a project where it's the same thing every day, you know, if you're working on like a Battlefield, for example, which I didn't work on Battlefield, but it's a good example because everything is kind of monotonous, you know? It's like, all right, who's gonna work on the mud today? Who's gonna work on this destroyed building? Who's gonna work on that destroyed building? You know, the aesthetic is very much, not even just the aesthetic, the subject matter is always extremely plain. And really you're just kind of trying to model after reality, and there's not a lot of room for like creative, like your creative input or your kind of personality to be put onto things. I mean, there is a little bit, but when you look at something like this, even look at this tree. Like this tree has so much personality, and it's because someone went in and hand built that tree just for this game. And they didn't build it to look like a realistic tree. They built it to look like a tree that they wanted it to look like, which is why you have to have so much admiration, even though it's low poly, even though the textures are like pretty low res. Yeah, very low res. It's a great looking tree, and it has so much character. I love these guys. Let's check out the animation on this. Oh, I have to break it. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Huh. Weird. If anyone has any idea how to open those, let me know in chat. Okay. Got a few more destinations we want to hit before this episode ends. I hope you guys are having a good time, honestly. Fortnite is just one of those games that, since it's open world, quote unquote open world, since the world we occupy is so big, there's just like so many different things to hit, and I really wish I could find a frickin' hoverboard somewhere. Because that would make traversing this a lot easier. Right now this is turning into the Art of Games walking simulator, 2019. These stars look good. Trying to see if there's any motion blur on them. I have motion blur turned on, but you can't, I don't know. Motion blur in games is like, sometimes I'm like, where did you even put it at? I don't even see it. As someone who's like addicted to adding motion blur to everything. So here's just another great example. Ooh, I got to fly. Here's just another great example of the asset teams, and you know, well, let's fly around here. It's another great example of the team building these assets to just having so much freedom to do whatever they want. Obviously, there used to be a giant mech standing here, and they got to build this huge like sci-fi bomb bay, and who knows how long it's gonna survive. I mean, nothing in Fortnite is permanent. I'm trying to remember any of the areas that are still there since the very beginning. I just know it's not very many. Maybe this machine will let me open it. Maybe I gotta pop a juice first. The the juice, the slurp juice animations are funny. Even for these shield potions, you'll notice that the liquid coming out of the bottle just goes right through the head of the character. See how it like flies out of its bag? I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to do that, but it's really funny either way. There we go. See the confetti coming out? It's very, very satisfying. All right, so let's hop on down. This is one of my favorite areas. This, Mayan city. Where are we? Here, Mayan city. They call it Sunny Steps because obviously it's kind of got a very gold, very, very shiny aesthetic. And I think it's kind of also alluding to, sun worship that took place in Mayan Aztec cultures. Which, like, might be a little dubious. It's kind of a very broad thing to base an entire area off of, but still, I think Fortnite has done a good job not condensing specific cultures into just like amusement park rides. Like it's a small world after all. I think this is as close as it has come to so far, from what I can remember anyway. But they really did a good job, and it doesn't feel like overtly characterized, if that makes sense. So what I really like about this area is how well it just sticks to its color aesthetic. We've obviously got the main colors here are this green, this orange, and then kind of a faded papaya, which you could consider part of the orange, but really I would consider it more of a secondary. Yeah, like look how the you have the green here, the papaya, and the brick, and how they contrast, the papaya and the orange. And pretty much everything here sticks to that, including like the grass and the plants and stuff. It's just, it's really nice. Anytime you can pick a color palette, a strong color palette, and just stick to it, man, gotta love it. I think things like the mall over here, where did it go? Retail Row, which used to be a mall. I guess it's not anymore. They're kind of, they don't have such a strong aesthetic, I think what makes this such a strong area, what makes Sunny Steps such a strong area, is that there were a lot of attention was definitely paid to making sure everything looked uniform, like you were entering, Magic Kingdom or something, everything kind of had the same uniform look and feel about it. And that's also something with the desert I think they did a great job with. Just every area in the desert kind of, even though it has its own unique feel, the desert area itself just has a really strong aesthetic to it. I think that the green grass areas like this, the more, I guess, lush areas of Fortnite, kind of have a little bit more of a generic look. This grass is very standard grass. You get the occasional flower, which is like a nice touch, but like really it just kind of feels bland. And I don't know if it's because it feels like vanilla Fortnite, but I think there's a tendency in games to just have like your default just be like trees and grass, but like lots of different environments in the world have trees and grass. Like how do you make it unique? How do you set it apart and not make it just like feel extremely basic? And I think eventually Fortnite, with enough updates and with enough new areas, eventually this just generic green grass area is gonna go away, and it's just gonna be replaced by more vibrant, more alive feeling areas. Looking out over these super low poly assets that are just, like, look at this rock. It's literally like 6 faces. It's literally like a cube that's just been like stretched. It's so funny to look at these assets from so far away. I love the little dust particle sprites that when you slide down here, you can slide. I need more of a hill. Oh, here we go. As I slide down, see all that smoke coming off of the feet? It's really just like a little cloud asset that's animated on, and then it slowly fades out as you pass by it. Really easy, really simple stuff. And I've been saying a lot in this episode that it's very easy and very simple, and by that I mean it's in its construction, it's very simple. But it's not easy to make things simple. It's not easy to make a good-looking low poly image. I mean, the easiest way to make something look good is just to like take a model and scan it in with photogrammetry until it has like 8 million polygons, which is something that is just not viable in game design. In game design, you have a very small, very limited amount of resources to deal with, a very limited amount of polygons, a very limited amount of computer resources, and you need to take all of that and make something that looks really, really good. And that is just not an easy thing to do. Just not easy at all. So the ability for Fortnite, especially a game that has to be super aware and has to really, really cater to gamers that are not gaming on high-end gaming PCs like I am right now, and their ability to cater to both high-end gaming PCs and like the worst cell phone you could possibly imagine is really incredible. And the fact that they can remake all these the assets aren't the same across all the games. Like this bush is probably, I'm 90% sure it's a different model. It's a different set of planes here than the one you get in the mobile version, let's say. And it's really incredible that the artists are able to do that. And it really takes a huge amount of time and effort on these people's parts to just, make this happen essentially. The shotgun looks great. There's a great sound to it too. I was wondering whether or not the zombies would spawn in creative mode, and I guess they don't. Which is fine. I'm definitely not complaining. Get another look at this nice, beautiful smoke trail as we head to the desert area here. I still cannot believe I'm walking all this way. I was hoping to like jump on a board and hit every single area I could think of, but this is gonna have to do. Oh, I need more stuff. I love how when you hit games to harvest them, they just kind of like wiggle and jiggle. It's such a good feeling. Oh, and you'll notice this is a nice thing. As you continue to hit these, I mean, I'm sure everyone who's played this game has noticed this, but it's just something nice to point out that the texture on this asset here changes as you hit it. Hit it once, it's still the same. Hit it twice, still the same. But when it hits a certain health threshold, you start to see these cracks appear. And what I think is happening is there's just another texture over top of it, and the more you hit it, the more hits it registers, the less opaque these like cracks become. You can see them slowly fade in until the thing actually breaks. And that's a great, super easy way to kind of make a transforming looking, I wonder if the trees do it. A transforming texture. No, the trees don't. They wiggle in a very silly way though. Oh, I feel like I could do 100 episodes on this game. It's just, it's so big and there's so much to it. So we've reached the desert region, and I just love this area because it just has so much more personality, like I said, than the generic green grass and trees. It's got this like long desert highway. It's got these, this old like jalopy truck, broken down, wheels still on it. This truck has so much character. I just love how all the assets have so much character. I know I've been ranting and raving about it, but it's a hard thing to do, You can take a truck from like a blueprint or a schematic and just pretty much make it, beat for beat, part for part, and then like make a low poly version of it. You can do that pretty easily. But to make an asset that itself has character is just, it really takes an artist's hand. And that's something that's just so great about Fortnite. Like even this car, so good. It almost has like an Incredibles vibe to it. And I know this game draws a lot from the art style of like Team Fortress 2 back in the day. Oof, back in the day. Woof, I'm old. Not that old, but old enough to know Team Fortress 2. And obviously this guy has a lot of character. I mean, he's a fan favorite. So good. Let's see if there's anything fun to throw here. Let's just check out. So already the storm grenade has some nice little particles and smoke swirling around it. Again, it looks just like maybe a plain texture with some lightning animated on it. But what really looks great about this particular asset is the light that it's casting onto this robot's model. You can see it reflected in the arm, and that looks so good. And it's something they have to pre-bake in there because you can't do it if you're not ray tracing. And now that I'm saying that, I would love to see Fortnite with ray tracing. Epic, make a demo, send it to me. I would die. So you get the storm bubble that raises and slowly opens. Honestly, it looks so good. Right at the beginning. From here on out, the storm is just like, it's pretty generic, It's a storm, you can see the straight lines that connect together to form a dome. It's not a perfect sphere, which happens when you get giant spheres like this, honestly, but like I said, not a big deal. No one's ever gonna notice, really. Eventually, when computers get better and faster, and honestly phones get better and faster, you're gonna start seeing much higher poly assets. I mean, even 5 years ago, this game would have probably seemed pretty high def, if you think about it. Because even though these are like super low poly assets, what is this? I haven't seen these yet in this update. Like this still has a lot of polygons. Back in the day, if you played like a PS2 game, this would have been like 1 polygon, 2 polygon, 3, 4, maybe like a few on the fillet here. This would have been like maybe 12 polygons total. And now you've got a unique polygon for each side to each section of this thing, So like, we say that this is kind of like a low poly game, but really it's not. Really, it has a lot of polygons. It's just a testament to how far our like rendering technology, real-time rendering technology has come in the past. Ooh, I can't not. It's really a testament to how far our, to how far real-time rendering technology has come and just how good phones are right now. Phones are really good at playing games. All right, let's check out this chug jug animation. Love the sound, the thunk. You obviously, I think the spray coming off the mouth is part of the animation. It's part of just the silliness. You can actually see the liquid emptying, and you can see kind of the distortion from the glass. Honestly, so good. The chug jug is just an incredible animation. I love it. All right, let's test out this junk rift. I don't know what it is. Whoa! That was wild. I literally don't know what just happened, but a dinosaur came out of the sky. I want to do that again. I didn't even have time to look at what the animation was. I was just so like confused. Oh, that took away all my shields. Okay. Maybe I should build a little platform here. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, let's try again. Shoots a firework into the sky, and just a random object falls. It's so weird. It doesn't make any sense, but it's so Fortnite, and that's one of the things I just love about this game. It's so weird. It's the weirdest game maybe I've played in a long time. This is caution, children. With Epic, I mean, oh, look at how low res that texture is. With Epic, you don't know if that's a warning to children to stay away, or if it's telling people to stay away because there's children. It's hard to know, and we may never know, honestly. So let's end this bad boy by building a ramp as high as we can go, just to the top. Love this desert area. So as you go on, and if you don't play Fortnite, that's fine. I'm not gonna judge you. I would recommend trying it just to know when your kids are like, Mom or Dad or Uncle or whatever, when you were a kid, did you play Fortnite? You can be like, yeah, I played it. I have a working knowledge of what this game is and what it does. Gotta get better at my building. Woof. Yeah, I need some practice, clearly. But when you get older and people ask you, where were you when Fortnite was a huge thing? You'll be there to say, yeah, I was there. I played it once or twice and it was great. And if you're super into Fortnite, keep trucking on. And really, when these new updates come out with these new, crazy spectacles, just think about all the time that the artists put in to really like make something that is, has character, looks good, and is able to work across all these devices. It's like, you can have it good, you can have it fast, you can have it cheap. You can't have all three, you can only pick two. The developers at Fortnite are forced to pick all three, and they do it every single time. I have yet to see an asset where I was like, that was kind of half-baked, or I don't know, that doesn't look so good. Every single asset they put out looks great. And then part of that's obviously their quality control department. They do a great job making sure every single thing that comes out of Epic looks great. But part of it's because Epic has hired top-tier talent. So as I fall to my doom, what a way to end it. As I fall to my doom, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a great time. This makes me want to just like go play Fortnite instead of getting back to work like I know I need to do. And oh, look at this spray. Someone made this art. Some developer went in and made this art. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep getting sidetracked if I don't hop off. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you stick around for the next show after this. You've been watching The Art of Games. My name's Keegan Larwin. I hope you guys have a great day. See you later.